Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Jeremy Bernstein tape, November 27, Side A. Born July 26, 1928, New York City. My father is a doctor. One sister, Barbara, married, 2 children, lives in New Jersey, 6 years younger. Her husband is a lawyer. I was taught to play chess at the age of 12, but did not play seriously until about age of 17, when I joined the Marshall Chess Club in New York on West 10th Street. I had few intellectual interests. As a child, I was a school misfit and considered, reading a book schoolwork. And I don't think I read a book for pleasure until after I graduated high school. I had one thing I think that perhaps helped me get over being a misfit, a school misfit, and that is that I became interested in photography about the same time, 12 or 13. I started out by just, getting a camera and learning how to take pictures and learning how to print pictures and learning how to build a darkroom and learning how to do all the technical things and so on and so on. And then finally trying to find out how you could sell pictures and become would it be possible to be a professional photographer? And it was a case of over a period of, say, from the age of 13 to 17, you might say, going through step by step by myself without anybody really helping me, the problem solving of becoming a photographer. And I found that, I think in looking back, that this particular thing about problem solving is something that schools generally don't teach you, and that if you can develop a kind of generalized approach to problem solving, that it's surprising how it helps you in anything. So I think that photography might have been more valuable than doing the proper things in school. Most of the English courses that I had consisted of the teacher saying, you're to read 5 pages of Silas Marner tonight, and the next day the class was spent in sitting at the book like Emil Jannings in The Blue Angel, looking up over the book and saying, Mr. Kubrick, and then you stand up and they say, when Silas Marner walked out of the door, what did he see? And if you didn't know what he saw, you got a 0. and that was it. And as a matter of fact, I failed English once and had to make it up in summer school. Well, I had developed myself as a photographer, and prior to graduating high school, I had sold 2 picture stories to Look. Oh, and I also sold them a picture. I sold them 2 picture stories and a photograph of a news dealer sitting on 170th Street in the Grand Concourse with all the headlines saying Roosevelt, dies, or FDR dead.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there looking depressed, and they liked this picture and used it in a whole series about Roosevelt, and it was sort of the final picture of the series. Well, I was apprentice photographer for 6 months, and then I became a staff photographer, and I was there for 4 years. And of course, that would have been the period I'd spent in college, and I think that the things, what I learned, and the practical experience in every respect, including photography, what I learned in that 4-year period exceeded what I could have learned in school. And also getting out of school, I can't remember what was the particular turning point, but being out of school, I began to read, and within a relatively short period of time, I would imagine caught up with where I probably should have been had I had a modicum of interest in things in high school. Like everybody else, I was always very interested in movies, and I used to go to see films, and I'd say practically every film. It was the post-war Italian the Rossellini pictures, which brought the art houses into existence. So there weren't that many good films that were ever played in the theaters around, except at the museum. A friend of mine, who subsequently has become a film director, named Alex Singer, was working as an office boy at the March of Time, and one day he told me that it cost $40,000 to make a March of Time, and it was a 1-reeler. And I said to him, gee, that's a lot of money. I said, I can't believe it cost that much to make, 8 or 9 minutes of film. So I called up Eastman Kodak and checked on the price of film. And then I called up the laboratory and found out how much it cost to develop it. And I checked on how much it cost to rent 35mm movie cameras. And I checked the cost of the other facilities, sound and editing and so forth. And I forgot what it added up to, but it was something like that I could do a documentary film for about $3,500. So I thought, gee, if they're making these pictures for $40,000 and I can make them for $3,500, surely I must be able to sell them and at least get my money back and probably make a profit, So, in fact, I think we thought that we could make a considerable profit because we assumed that if they were making them for $40,000 a piece, that they must be making a profit, And so I rented a 35mm IMO camera. That's spelled EYEMO, which is a spring-wound camera, produces a professional picture. And I did a documentary film about a boxer named Walter Cartier, who I had previously done a picture story for Look about, and I knew him. And it was called Day of the Fight. And got the whole thing, did everything. Alex helped me, sort of carried lights around and assisted me, and I did the whole thing, just myself and Alex and Walter and his people that he knew, and cut it. And another friend of mine who subsequently has become a professional movie composer named Gerald Fried, F-R-I-E-D, did a film score and got the whole thing finished for $3,900. And then when we began to take it around to the various companies to sell it, they all liked it, but were offered things like $1,500 and $2,500 and so forth. At one point I said to them, Christ, why are you offering us so little for this? One reel shorts, gets more than $40,000. And they said, what, you must be crazy. And I said, why do you think that? And so I told them about the March of Time, and anyway, they said it was, was ridiculous. And shortly after that, the March of Time went out of business for the reason we later found out that they were spending approximately, if the March of Time sues me for this, Alex somehow found out when he was working there that it was costing $40,000 to make one of their one-reelers, and they went out of business. Well, anyway, I finally sold the film to RKO-Pathe, who are no longer in business either, and sold it for about $100 less than it cost me to make it. I know it was a small loss, but I had the pleasure of seeing it shown, and I remember I went to the Paramount Theater where it was playing with some Ava Gardner, Robert Mitchum picture, and it was very exciting to see it on the screen, and it got a nationwide and worldwide distribution. And so I thought everybody liked it, and they thought it was good. And I thought that this would be, I'd get millions of offers, from which I got none to do anything. I made another documentary, this time about a flying priest. I forgot, Father Stottmuller or something, in New Mexico, who flew a Piper Cub around to Indian parishes. I know RKO thought it was a colorful subject, and so I went there and pretty much on my own again made this short. And still, nothing was happening. And
were they supporting you for this? Or?
No, they gave me $1,500, and of which I had to pay for the film, the travel, and everything. I made nothing. I think I lost money on that too. But I had been making a reasonably good salary, it looked, for 4 years, so I had a certain amount of money, and I was still working. So then I quit Look, because I decided that there obviously wasn't any money in shorts, but that I then found out how much feature films were being made for, and millions. And I had calculated that I could make a feature film for about $10,000. And
well, how did you calculate that?
Well, again by projecting the amount of film I'd shoot, figuring that I could get actors to work for practically nothing. You know, work with, I mean, at this point I was the whole crew, cameraman, assistant cameraman, you know, director, everything. So I had no cost. So a friend of mine in the village did a script about 4 soldiers from an unnamed country lost behind enemy lines, trying to find their way home again. I didn't really know what I didn't know, and I thought, well, Christ, there really can't be very much more to making a feature film, and I certainly couldn't make one worse than the films that I kept seeing every week. But I wasn't satisfied to just make you know, an interesting film. I wanted it to be a very poetic and meaningful film. I got the film made, and but it was very, very dull, and it got an art house distribution. It was called Fear and Desire, distributed by Jeremy Bernstein, who was at one time, I think he was the distributor who first brought in Rossellini's pictures. It got a few reasonably good reviews. It got a nice blurb from Mark Van Doren, and who was very kind about it. And it had a few, you know, it had a few good moments in it, but with the exception of 1 or 2 of the actors, they were all terrible actors, and I knew nothing about directing any actors.
Well, how did you go about directing them? Just sort of.
Well, I don't remember. You know, it was really, you know, just it was really just well, actually, from some of the so-called professional efforts I've subsequently seen, you know, people doing, I would say I didn't go about it that much differently than a lot of people do, but I didn't really know anything, you know. But there were some good moments in it, and as I say, it even got a few good reviews. It opened at the Guild Theater in New York, and it was pretty apparent, you know, that it was terrible, you know, and while it was still playing, I decided, well, I'd better get another script very fast, and try to promote some more money on the strength of just the fact that the thing was playing, because it wasn't apparent to me how I was going to earn a living or do anything, you know. And again, not one single offer ever to do anything, you know. In about 2 weeks, knocked together another script with somebody, and this time it was sort of a reaction to the other one. This was nothing but action sequences and a more sort of mechanically constructed sort of action gangster plot. Mobile co-produced and put up the money to make Killer's Kiss. That was not a great financial success. It was at that time that I was playing chess for quarters in the park. I was playing chess for quarters. I mean, I was doing it for the fun of it, but I also did make about $2 or $3 a day, which it really goes a long way if you're not buying anything except food.
How many hours a day were you putting in down there?
Well, when I was waiting for things to happen, you know, waiting to get an answer on something, which went on for months, you know, sometimes, I would go there about 12 o'clock and stay there until, you know, midnight. We formed the company, which was called Harris Kubrick Pictures. After looking for a story, we bought a book called The Clean Break by Lionel White. And this was the story that we made into The Killing for United Artists. Well, first of all, United Artists' function was only to finance and distribute the films. It was up to us to hire the people and make the film. And I presume that United Artists thought that if The Killer's Kiss could be made, you know, on the semi-professional basis it was, that with an adequate amount of money, which was fairly minimum, you know, we could make a film. Jimmy had to guarantee completion of the movie, which means that if the movie ran over the budget, he had to put up all the extra money, which is a great safeguard, and especially since financially he was responsible to make this kind of a guarantee, it wasn't that much of a risk. Well, we had a very good cast, but none of the people were big stars in the sense that they were extremely choosy about what they were in. The principal cast was Sterling Hayden, Colleen Gray, Marie Windsor, Elisha Cook Jr., Joe Sawyer, Ted DeCorsia, Vince Edwards. So anyway, we made The Killing, and somehow Dory Sherry saw it and he liked it. He was the first one who really showed any interest in us, you know, to the extent of offering us any sort of a deal to make another picture. Well, it was really sort of concurrent with this that I remembered reading Paths of Glory. I did a screenplay with Jim Thompson and Calder Willingham, and nobody wanted to do it. It was turned down by every company until our agent, Ronnie Lubin, L-U-B-I-N, interested Kirk Douglas in the project, and through Kirk's interest, United Artists put up the money on the basis of it being done for a very low budget in Europe. The picture was a moderate success. The reviews on it were very good. Many reviews were superlative, and from that point of view, it was an enormous success. The greatest virtue of the film was that I met my wife, Christiana, who was an actress. I was watching a television broadcast and saw her, and got in touch with her agent. She came out to the studio. We met. I began dating her, and we subsequently got married a year later. This is followed by about 6 months spent working on a script for Kirk Douglas, which he didn't like, and some more months working on something which Gregory Peck was supposed to do for us, which was also abandoned, followed by the offer from Marlon Brando to direct his Western, which resulted in 6 months of work, again abandoned as far as I was concerned because I left the project. This was followed by a script called The German Lieutenant, which again no one liked, followed by Kirk Douglas's offer to take over Spartacus after a week of shooting, which I did. Yes, my narrative criticisms, which were at first so enthusiastically received, began to grow pale as time went on due to the counter pressures of the writer Dalton Trumbo and Kirk's producer Eddie Lewis, who did not see eye to eye to me with me on the story. I was on the picture almost 2 years. Only about 8 weeks was spent in Spain doing the battles and the big march-bys. The whole picture was done on the back lot at Universal. It was interesting to, from a purely as an exercise, you know, to try to do scenes that you thought weren't very good and to try to make them interesting. I thought the first 45 minutes of the film, of the life in the gladiatorial school, which was simple, turned out quite well, as far as I'm concerned. But then the rest of the story, from the slave rebellion on to the end, I thought seemed a bit silly. Well, during the making of Spartacus, we bought Lolita, Jimmy and I. Finally, Seven Arts, a company named Seven Arts, put up the money, and we made it. The only thing that is regrettable about the film is that due to the incredible pressure against making the film by all sorts of groups, although I think the film was faithful psychologically to all the characters and captured, I think, the sense of them, I think that the total lack of eroticism in the story, in this film presentation of it, spoils some of the pleasure of it. You know, you can imply all the eroticism you want, but there's nothing like delivering some to help understand a little more the enslavement, you know, that Humbert was under. There was some criticism by some people that said that she looked too old, but I never thought that was a valid criticism because it was one of those books where nobody bothered to really read the description that Humbert gave of Lolita, because it's inevitably people imagined her as being about 9 years old. But I know that Lolita was 12 years and 3 months when he meets her, and then the story progresses through quite a few years. Well, Sue Lyon was actually just 13 when we made the picture, and I thought this criticism was not valid. Well, I was interested in whether or not I was going to get blown up by an H-bomb prior to Lolita. My interest intensified itself sort of concurrently with that. I believe that the Berlin crisis took place during Lolita, and about that time I became keenly interested and started reading up on all the, you know, literature, of which there's a terrific extent, you know, a tremendous a lot. Boy, am I getting fucked up on that. A tremendous a lot. I would say I pretty much read the spectrum. You know, I began finding after a while that I wasn't reading anything new, and I decided I knew the whole thing, you know. I came to London and started.
You had the script pretty well.
Oh, the script was done, and it was done in its black comedy form, a fact which a certain amount of confusion has been created about. The script was done. Peter Sellers was cast. I never stopped working on a script. I like to work with somebody else because under the time pressures that you're under, you can't afford the sort of lapse of intensity that if you work by yourself you might suffer. And Terry seemed like an ideal person because the style of the script was similar, to his sense of humor. Well, I was very pleased with it. I mean, when you say a winner, I mean, I thought it was I was very pleased with the film. It happened to also be a very successful film commercially. Depressing thing is that at every period of history, the power structure and the leaders always looked back on the previous period of history and thought that they had learned something. I think that, the old thing about the only thing you can learn about history is that you can't learn from history is probably true, and that there's this illusion that you get that you're much more sophisticated and that it can never happen that way again. Maybe true, but the thing you don't realize is that it'll happen a different way. In praise of Arthur C. Clarke, he is, I think, the most poetic science fiction writer. He is scientifically the best informed. His narrative ideas, I think, are, for my tastes, the most appealing. He captures the hopeless but admirable human desire to know, these things that they never will, can never really know, and to reach for things that they can never, really reach or reach back. And, it's very hard to say it exactly, but this sense of sadness, without underlining it, there is a contrast in the story between giant orbiting bombs, which you might say is the negative use of nuclear energy, and this particular spaceship, which leads to great, fantastic accomplishments, which is also another the good use of nuclear energy.